Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Syrian president and US envoy to Turkey says Israel and Syria agree for a ceasefire. Israel allows Syrian troops limited access to Sweda. Congo and the M23 rebel groups sign a peace deal in Qatar. The deal aims to end fighting in eastern Congo. Donald Trump sues Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch for $10 billion over the Epstein news story. Days of unrest in South Syria has finally halted as conflicting parties announced a ceasefire on Saturday. The Syrian presidency has urged all parties to respect the ceasefire and avoid further violence. More in this report.
The Syrian government announced an immediate ceasefire in the southern Syrian city of Sweda on Saturday as Interior Ministry forces deployed in the Druze majority province under a US brokered deal with Israel. The presidency called on all parties to fully respect the truce, which came after Israel bombed Defense Ministry forces on Wednesday, which had been deployed to the southern province earlier this week to force their withdrawal.
We thank the tribes for the heroic positions, but we call on them to fully commit to ceasing fire and complying with state orders. And everyone must understand that this moment requires unity of ranks and complete cooperation in order to overcome what we are all going through.
Earlier on Friday, US envoy Tom Barrack stated that both the parties involved in the conflict have agreed to a truce. Barrack, who is both the US ambassador to Turkey and Washington's Syria envoy, stated that the ceasefire was embraced by Turkey, Jordan, and neighbors. He also urged Druze, Bedouins, and Sunnis to put down their weapons and together with other minorities build a new and united Syrian identity. Though Israeli military will continue to bring back the civilians who entered into Syria after hundreds of Druze were seen crossing the border in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, members of the Druze community appealed for the protection of their families in the neighboring country. Israel aims to protect Syria's Druze minority while also saying it wants areas of South Syria near its border to remain demilitarized. Syria's Sweda province has been engulfed by nearly a week of violence, which began with clashes between Bedouin fighters and Druze factions before drawing in government security forces that were sent to the area by Damascus. Close ties between the Israeli state and its 150,000 Druze citizens, strengthened by the fact that Druze men serve in the Israeli army, are one of the reasons for Israel's deepening involvement in Syria. Bureau Report, DD India.
President Donald Trump has announced that another 10 hostages will be released from Gaza shortly, lauding the efforts of US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Trump made this comment during a dinner with lawmakers at the White House, expressing optimism that this process will be completed quickly.
Gaza, we got most of the hostages back. We're going to have another 10 coming very shortly, and we hope to have that finished pretty quickly. And Steve Witkoff has been fantastic. He's done a great job in that. He's a very good man, good deal maker. I said, I need a good deal maker with a good personality, and there aren't too many of them, but Steve is, and he's done a great job.
Israeli and Hamas negotiators have been taking part in the latest round of ceasefire talks in Doha since July 6th, discussing a US-backed proposal for a 60-day ceasefire. The truce proposal calls for 10 hostages held in Gaza. to be returned along with the bodies of 18 others, spread out over 60 days. In exchange, Israel would release a number of detained Palestinians. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz met with U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon on Friday. Katz praised President Trump's brave and historic decision to strike Iran's nuclear facilities in June. The meeting comes after Israel launched strikes against Syrian government forces in southwestern Syria earlier this week.
We stand firmly with Israel, committed to reinforcing your right to self-defense, and whether it's new capabilities, that defense, or a lasting peace, we look forward to working together.
I would like to express just how much I'm impressed with Operation Midnight Hammer. It was a brave and historic decision by President Trump. Together, we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. We destroyed the Iranian nuclear program.
U.S. President Donald Trump has filed a $10 billion defamation lawsuit in Miami's federal court against the Wall Street Journal, its parent companies Dow Jones and News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, and 2 reporters. The suit targets a July 17th report alleging that Trump sent Jeffrey Epstein a 2003 birthday letter with a suggestive drawing and a reference to shared secrets. Trump, denying the report on Truth Social, called it a scam and vowed to make Murdoch testify. The unverified claim fueled scrutiny of Trump's Epstein ties amid conspiracy theories among his base. Trump's administration faced backlash after a July 7 Justice Department memo denied an Epstein client list exists. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has filed a motion to unseal the grand jury transcripts related to the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In a filing in Manhattan Federal Court, the Department of Justice said the criminal cases against Epstein and his former associates Ghislaine Maxwell are a matter of public interest, justifying the release of associated grand jury transcripts. Over 200 Venezuelans who were deported from the United States on allegations of gang membership earlier this year and detained in El Salvador jail arrived home to Caracas on Friday. The release was part of a coordinated prisoner exchange with 10 Americans held in Venezuela returned to the United States, which ended a months-long ordeal decried by the rights groups. Venezuela's government said 252 Venezuelans held in El Salvador had been freed. President Nicolas Maduro celebrated the arrival of 2 airplanes carrying them near Caracas on Friday evening. The Venezuelans were sent to El Salvador from the United States in March after U.S. President Donald Trump invoked 1798 Alien Enemies Act to swiftly deport alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang without going through normal immigration procedures. They were held in El Salvador's notorious CICOT maximum security prison. Venezuelan President Maduro thanked U.S. President Donald Trump for making it happen. In a significant development on European asylum policy, Germany and 5 European nations have agreed to tighten asylum rules across the European Union, including making deportations to Afghanistan and Syria standard practice. The decision was reached during a high-level meeting led by German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt with his European counterparts from France, Poland, Austria and Czech Republic and Denmark. The new goals, pending Brussels approval, also propose the removal of legislative barriers to transfer rejected asylum seekers to secure centers outside the EU and to conduct asylum procedures in third countries.
Wir wollen drittens die Rückkehr We want to significantly strengthen deportation regulations. This includes making it possible for so-called return hubs to be created, including in third countries, where people who are required to leave the country can also be accommodated outside of Europe.
The Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel groups signed in Qatar on Saturday a declaration of principles, basically a peace deal to end fighting in eastern Congo. The declaration was signed between representatives from both sides in Doha. The declaration includes an agreement for an immediate ceasefire, outlines a commitment to begin formal negotiations on a comprehensive peace agreement in the near future. It also includes a roadmap for restoring state authority in eastern DRC. Eastern DRC has been racked by conflict for more than 3 decades, creating a humanitarian crisis and forcing hundreds of thousands of people to flee from their homes. Thousands of people were killed in the M23 offensive earlier this year, which saw the rebels capture the key provincial capitals of Goma and Bukavu. Finance chiefs from the group of 20 countries highlighted the importance of central bank independence in a communique issued on Friday, following a 2-day meeting in South Africa's coastal city of Durban. The ministers and the central bankers pledged to strengthen cooperation, marking their first joint communique since October 2024. Central bank autonomy featured prominently in the talks, amid market concerns over Trump's repeated criticism of U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell for not cutting interest rates. The communique was agreed in the absence of U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The U.S. delegation was led by Michael Kaplan, the acting Undersecretary for International Affairs.
There had been contestations about central banks around the globe. It was, pronouncements were also made in Europe. And at the meeting of the IMF in Washington in April, the issue of central bank independence came very strongly there. Unfortunately, there was no communique at that time.
The G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting concluded in South Africa, with leaders gathered there to discuss pressing global economic issues. DD India correspondent Nazneen Ismail caught up with Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India there. Take a listen.
Amid global economic uncertainty, India's voice continues to rise with quiet confidence. I caught up with Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Dr. Venkatraman Ananda Nageshwaran, who's helping shape not just India's fiscal path, but conversations across the G20.
India continues to articulate some of the issues that are common to the developing world, and also obviously for India as well. One is, how will we assimilate and integrate technology while creating jobs, such as artificial intelligence, etc. I think the way in which global South countries can collaborate is to pool their human resources and look at creating R&D, because supply chain vulnerabilities arise from dependence on single sources. And obviously the answer to that is to do what today's dominant supply chain countries have done, which is to invest in technology, invest in R&D, invest in human resources. And if individual countries are somewhat fiscally strapped, it is important to tap into the private sector, but also collaborate and pool the intellectual and human resources to be able to create supply chain resilience. This not only involves understanding each country's strengths in terms of physical resource endowments, etc., but also human resource endowments. And these are the areas through which I think South Africa and India can collaborate.
Two nations, one conversation. India's economic wisdom meets South Africa's warm diplomacy. That was Dr. Nageshwaran, and I'm Nazneen for DD India, connecting continents through conversation.
Brazilian police raided Jair Bolsonaro's home on Friday as a judge imposed further restrictions on the far-right former leader, while he stands trial on coup charges that have vexed U.S. President and ally Donald Trump. His son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, lashed out at the Supreme Court Judge Alexandre de Moraes, Bolsonaro adversary, who on Friday ordered the ex-president to wear an electronic ankle bracelet, not leave his home at night or use social media. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on Friday that Washington was revoking a U.S. visa for judicial officials for the political witch hunt against Jair Bolsonaro. And coming up is South Korea's jailed ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol indicted on additional charges. India's first bullet train to run by August 2027.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on D.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Amritpal Singh. South Korea's jailed ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol was indicted on additional charges as a special prosecutor continues investigating him for his short-lived declaration of martial law in December. The new charges include obstruction of the exercise of others' rights by abuse of authority, ordering the deletion of records, and blocking the execution of arrest warrants. The prosecutor's office said this in a briefing. Yoon has been on trial on charges of insurrection, which is punishable by death or life imprisonment, facing additional charges since the special prosecutor was appointed in June to take over the cases against him. The impeached and deposed former leader has been jailed at Seoul Detention Center since earlier this month, and a court earlier this week rejected his request to be freed from detention. Cuba has removed the age limit for presidential candidates in a reform approved by its National Assembly. The 2019 Constitution had set it at 60 for the first-time contenders. The 5-year term, renewable once, and the maximum age of 35 remains unchanged. The communist-ruled island restriction of 2 5-year presidential terms and minimum age of 35 for candidates were also left unchanged. Former President Raul Castro, who at the age of 94 still holds a seat in the Assembly, was the first to vote for the reform that will be on the books for 2028 presidential elections. The inclusion of term and age limits in 2019 Constitution marked a radical shift after six decades in which Fidel Castro and his brother Raul were in power. The nation of nearly 10 million people is suffering its worst economic crisis in 3 decades, with a shortage of all kinds of supplies, power outages, and unprecedented immigration. India's Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, along with the Union Minister of Coal and Mines Kishan Reddy, on Saturday inspected the progress of the railway wagon manufacturing unit at Kazipet in Telangana. Minister Vaishnav described the establishment of the unit as a proud moment for Warangal and a significant milestone for the India economic growth. He expressed hope that civil construction work at the Kazipet unit will be completed by December 2025, while manufacturing operations slated to begin in 2026. The facility will produce railway engines, bogies and metro trains, positioning it as one of the largest railway manufacturing units in the country. And the Railway Minister also announced that India's first bullet train is set to commence operations by August or September 2027. Speaking at the 14th convocation of IIT Hyderabad, Minister Vaishnav highlighted India's rapid progress under the Make in India initiative, positioning the country as a global leader in manufacturing and technology.
First bullet train project is also rapidly progressing. We should see a bullet train running in 2027. It's a huge change which has happened because of Make in India program of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. And that builds the foundation for an industry which provides employment, which provides design opportunities, and which builds a totally new ecosystem for our country.
The minister also emphasized that India will soon be among the top 5 semiconductor nations in the world, underscoring India's rapid progress in the chip manufacturing and tech infrastructure development.
First made in India chip, manufactured in India chip on a commercial scale will be manufactured in this year 2025. The way we have created the talent pool, the way we are promoting the design, and the way we are going deeper into the capital equipment and the materials required for semiconductors, India will become one of the top 5 semiconductor nations in the world.
Heavy rain and a wet outfield have delayed the start of the play in the second women's ODI at Lord's between England and India. The play was due to get underway at 15:30 Indian Standard Time, with India holding a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series following a 4-wicket win at Southampton on Wednesday. These matches against England are crucial as they serve as a key preparation for the ICC Women's One Day International World Cup, which India will host later this year. With India's sporting ambitions on the rise, Dream Sports Foundation is focusing on grassroots development through quality competitions, tech-driven talent ID, and athlete education. In an exclusive interview with DD India's Narayan Singh, Dream Sports Foundation CEO Neil Shah highlighted the role of public-private partnership in building a stronger sports ecosystem, especially as the nation eyes the 2036 Olympics.
Government is leaving no stone unturned to put the Indian sports at the next level, and they are bringing all the stakeholders under one umbrella to put the Indian sports at the next level. And right now I am joined by the CEO of the Dream Sports Foundation, Neil Shah. The foundations like Dream Sports Foundation are doing exceptionally well. So how you people are pushing the Indian sport so that it can go at the next level?
Yeah, Dream Sports Foundation is set up really to focus on elevating the youth sports experience the best we can, and we're doing that through many different interventions. One of the big ones is just creating high quality competitions for youth in India across some key sports. So we want to make sure that every youth player gets that opportunity to aspire to play in these competitions. But beyond that, it's just like the whole format of the tournament, the international participation, live streaming, that there's data analytics components tied into it so they're able to track their own performance. So they really feel strong and excited and proud about their participation in this event. That's one way. Another thing that we're really focusing on is the athlete intelligence side. So technology is massive, of course, and it's an opportunity to leverage technology to do talent identification and also provide insights and recommendations to support coaching programs. So we're trying to bring in more technology into youth sports, so we uplift the whole talent identification and long-term athlete development process.
Talking about the way right now the government is also, we can say, very vocal about the public-private partnership, the introduction of the corporates in the sports, and many corporates are there who are supporting the sports right now in India, as India is also planning to host the 2036 edition.
Yes.
So how you look this thing that the government is pushing hard for this thing?
Oh, it's exciting. It's exciting. I was in a conclave yesterday where the Honorable Sports Minister, Shri Mansukhh Mandavia, spoke beautifully about his vision for sports in India. A lot of national sports federations are really trying to kind of tighten up and be more focused on helping us achieve a lot of medals. If or not, we're hosting the 2036 Olympics. Hopefully it is hosted here in India. I feel that the public-private partnerships is the only way. It's not like, because there's a lot of big public entities like ourselves and others that are very interested in investing CSR money, but also other investment, just to ensure that development of sports is focused, it's long-term.
Definitely a fantastic platform here for our athletes, the way things are happening, the way institutions like Dream Sports Foundation are working. Definitely the things we will see that in coming times will put the Indian sports at the next level. With camera person Piyush, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
And that's all in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on your screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amritpal Singh from my entire team here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India Live.